Picture this, you're 33, standing on the edge of your wildest dreams. You've just sold your tech startup for $25 million, and you're ready to buy a breathtaking villa overlooking the city, a place to finally call home. That was me, Emma, 6 months ago, thinking I'd made it. Then in one heart-stopping moment, my world shattered. My own mother, Linda, and my older brother, Ethan, the people I loved most, betrayed me in a way I never could have imagined. They stole $12 million from me, disappeared into the night, and left a cruel message. Thanks for the cash, sis. We're living the life we deserve. How do you rebuild when your family rips your trust to shreds? Why am I standing here today stronger than ever? And what secret did I uncover that turned their betrayal into my greatest victory? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story of loss, it's about rising from the ashes in a way you won't believe. Let's rewind to where it all started. I grew up in a rundown apartment in Detroit where the walls were patched with duct tape and the winters were colder inside than out. My single mom, Linda, worked endless shifts at a greasy diner, coming home with aching feet and a smile she forced for me and Ethan. My brother, 5 years my senior, was my hero back then. He'd slip me extra fries from his fast food job or tell me stories to drown out the sound of mom crying over unpaid bills. Family was everything to me. Our struggles bound us together, or so I thought. From a young age, I knew education was my way out. While other kids played, I studied under a flickering kitchen light. I clawed my way to a full scholarship at Stanford, surviving on instant noodles and sheer grit. Every spare dollar I earned from part-time jobs went to Mom and Ethan, because that's what you do for family, right? Have you ever poured everything into someone only to wonder if they saw you at all? Fast forward to last year. My startup CyberShield, a cybersecurity company, became a Silicon Valley darling. When I sold it for $25 million, I felt like I'd won the lottery, not for the money, but for the chance to give back. I bought Mom a charming house with a garden she'd always dreamed of tending. I paid off Ethan's debts, ignoring his endless excuses about bad luck. But there were moments I brushed off Mom's tight-lipped nods when I shared my successes, Ethan's questions about my bank accounts that felt too pointed. I told myself it was nothing, that love meant trusting blindly. Then came the day I decided to transfer $12 million to Mom's account for my dream home. It was supposed to be a quick step, a safe move. I ignored my fiancé Noah's warnings, dismissed the bank's concerns. I was wrong, catastrophically wrong. By morning, the money was gone, so were Mom and Ethan. My phone buzzed with a video from an unknown number, Ethan grinning on a yacht, raising a glass to the camera, captioned, "Wish you were here, sis." They'd orchestrated a scam so slick it fooled everyone, funneling my money into a web of international accounts. I stood in Mom's empty kitchen, my screams echoing off the walls, realizing the family I'd built my life around had seen me as a paycheck. But this story doesn't end in defeat. What would you do if the people you trusted most turned your world upside down? I chose to fight, and what I discovered about their plan and myself changed everything. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Has someone you loved ever betrayed you? Hit that like button and subscribe, because over the next 30 minutes, I'll take you through a journey from heartbreak to triumph. Let's dive in together right now. Let's step back to the beginning, to a time when my dreams were just sparks in a world that felt too small to hold them. I'm Emma, and I grew up in a tired 2-bedroom apartment in Detroit, where the walls seemed to sag under the weight of our struggles. The air always carried a faint whiff of mildew, and the radiator clanked like it was begging for a break. My mom, Linda, was a single parent who poured her heart into raising me and my older brother, Ethan. She'd drag herself home after double shifts at a corner diner, her apron stained with coffee and ketchup, her hands rough from scrubbing dishes. I can still see her sitting at our wobbly kitchen table, counting loose change to cover the electric bill, her eyes heavy but determined. Ethan, 5 years older, was my shield in those days. He'd sneak me his last bite of a candy bar, or distract me with silly impressions when Mom's stress filled the room. We were a team, or so I thought, bound by love and the kind of grit that comes from having nothing but each other. Have you ever felt that kind of bond, the kind you'd bet your life on? From as early as I can remember, I knew I had to break free from that cycle of scraping by. School became my escape. While other kids hung out at the mall, I'd huddle under a dim lamp in our cramped living room, poring over textbooks. My teachers noticed. Mrs. Larson, my high school math teacher, once slipped me a graphing calculator because she saw how badly I wanted to learn. That little gesture meant the world. I worked part-time at a grocery store, ringing up canned soup and diapers, saving every penny for a future I could barely imagine. My determination paid off when I earned a full scholarship to Stanford. Leaving Detroit felt like stepping into a different universe, but even at Stanford, I never stopped hustling. I juggled 2 jobs, tutoring and cleaning dorms, living on instant ramen and free coffee from campus events. Every month, I'd send a little money back home to Mom and Ethan because family was my anchor. It never occurred to me to question whether they saw it the same way. Has there ever been a moment in your life when you gave everything only to wonder if it was enough? After college, I dove into the tech world, landing a job at a small startup in San Francisco. But I wanted more, not just money, but impact. So I took a leap and founded CyberShield, a cybersecurity company that protected businesses from digital threats. The early days were brutal: 18-hour coding marathons, maxed out credit cards, and the constant fear of failure. I remember one night sleeping on the office floor because I'd missed the last bus home. But by year 3, CyberShield was a name people trusted. Major banks signed on, and last year when I sold the company for $25 million, it felt like I'd climbed Everest. I was 33, and for the first time I could breathe. I wanted to share that victory with the people who'd been with me through the lean years. I bought Mom a cozy house in a quiet Detroit suburb, complete with a garden where she could grow roses, something she'd always dreamed of. I paid off Ethan's debts, car loans, credit cards, you name it, hoping he'd finally find his footing. I even set up a monthly allowance for Mom so she could quit the diner and live with dignity. She'd hug me and say, "You've done so much, Emma," but sometimes her eyes didn't match her words. There was a flicker resentment maybe that I brushed off. Ethan too started asking strange questions about my finances, like how much I kept in savings or whether I had offshore accounts. I told myself it was just curiosity. After all, they were family. Who else could I trust? Looking back, I see the cracks I ignored. Mom would change the subject when I talked about CyberShield's growth, steering the conversation to Ethan's latest bad break or her arthritis. Ethan, who'd dropped out of community college and bounced between odd jobs, seemed to resent my drive. Once at Thanksgiving, he snapped, "Not everyone can be a tech genius." Emma and Mom just patted his hand like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I let it slide, convincing myself love meant overlooking the small stuff. That was my mistake, and here's the lesson I learned the hard way: trust is precious, but it's not blind. Pay attention to the little signs, the offhand comments, the uneasy glances, because they're often whispers of a bigger truth. If I'd listened to those whispers, I might have seen what was coming. But I didn't, and that's why the next moment hit me like a freight train. Before we go there, drop a comment. Have you ever ignored a red flag because you loved someone? Hit that like button if this story's hitting home, and make sure you're subscribed, because what happened next wasn't just a betrayal, it was a carefully laid trap that changed everything. Let's keep going. You know that moment when your heart drops and the world feels like it's spinning out of control? That's exactly where I found myself 6 months ago, staring at a bank account that should have held $12 million, but was now empty. I'm Emma, and this is the part of my story where everything I thought I knew about family crumbled. My mom, Linda, and my brother, Ethan, didn't just betray me. They pulled off a scam so cold and calculated it left me gasping for air. How could the people who raised me, who shared my childhood dreams, do this? Let me take you into the moment that broke me and why it's a lesson I'll never forget. It started with a dream, the kind you can almost touch. I'd found the perfect house, a villa perched on a hill with floor-to-ceiling windows and a garden that felt like peace itself. It was $15 million, and I planned to make a $12 million wire transfer to secure it, beating out other buyers in a hot market. My fiancé Noah wasn't thrilled. "Emma, this is risky," he said over dinner, his fork hovering over his pasta. "Why not keep the money in your account until closing?" I brushed him off, my confidence bordering on stubbornness. "It's just a quick transfer to Mom's account for safekeeping. She's family, Noah." "What could go wrong?" the bank manager, Mr. Reynolds, echoed Noah's concern, his glasses slipping down his nose as he leaned across his desk. "Ms. Thompson, wire transfers are secure, but mistakes happen. Double-check the account details." I nodded, but my mind was already on the villa's view. I'd seen Mom's bank statements, helped her set up the account years ago. It was safe. It had to be. Have you ever been so sure of something that you ignored every warning sign? The transfer was set for a Friday afternoon. I got an email from what looked like Mom's bank confirming the account number and routing details. The subject line read, "Urgent finalize payment for property purchase." It was professional, official, with the bank's logo and all. I entered the details, hit send, and felt a rush of excitement. My dream home was one step closer. That night, I slept soundly, picturing morning coffee on that villa's terrace. But by Saturday morning, everything changed. I woke to a text from an unknown number. "Thanks for the cash, sis. We're living the life we deserve. Don't bother looking for us." My stomach churned as I opened my banking app. The $12 million was gone. Vanished. I called Mom's phone straight to voicemail. Ethan's rang once, then disconnected. Panic clawed at my chest as I drove to Mom's house, the one I'd bought her, only to find it empty. The porch swing creaked in the wind, and on the kitchen counter was a printed email, the same one I'd used for the transfer. Except now I saw it, the email address was off by one letter, a fake domain designed to trick me. They'd hacked Mom's account, or worse, she'd given them access. Then came the final blow. My phone buzzed with a video from another unknown number. It was Ethan lounging on a yacht in what looked like the Bahamas, sunglasses perched on his nose, a cocktail in hand. "Wish you were here, Emma," he said, laughing before the screen cut to Mom, waving from the deck, her smile sharp as a knife. The caption read, "New life thanks to you." I sank to the floor, my screams echoing in the empty house, my hands shaking so badly I dropped my phone. They hadn't just stolen my money, they'd planned this, mocked me, and vanished into a life they thought I'd funded. It was a business email compromise scam, or BE, the kind that costs Americans billions each year. Think of the 2019 case where a North Carolina company lost $1.7 million to a fake CEO email. My case was worse because it was family. Here's the lesson I learned in that kitchen: surrounded by silence, trust can be your strength, but it's also your blind spot. Always verify, especially when it's someone you love. If I'd called Mom to confirm the email or checked the domain more closely, I might have stopped this. But I didn't, and that mistake set off a chain of events that nearly destroyed me. Before we move on, drop a comment. Have you ever been tricked by a scam that seemed too real? Hit that like button. If you're feeling this, and subscribe, because what I found out next wasn't just about the money, it was about a plan so dark it chilled me to the core. Let's keep going. Have you ever felt like your life was unraveling thread by thread, and no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't stop it? That's where I was sitting in my mom's empty kitchen, the echo of my own sobs bouncing off the walls. I'm Emma, and after my mom, Linda, and my brother Ethan stole $12 million from me through a fake email scam, I thought the worst was over. But the truth is, losing the money was just the beginning. The real damage came in the weeks that followed as my heart, my relationships, and my reputation crumbled. Let me take you through the darkest days of my life and the lesson that kept me from giving up entirely. The morning I discovered the betrayal, I called Noah, my fiancé, barely able to speak through my tears. "They're gone." I choked out the money, Mom, Ethan, everything. He rushed over, his face pale, and held me as I shook, but I could feel a distance growing between us. I was drowning in grief, replaying every moment with Mom and Ethan, searching for clues I'd missed. Was Mom's hug at Christmas fake? Did Ethan's late-night talks about his big plans mean something sinister? I stopped sleeping, my nights filled with nightmares of chasing them through endless airports, always one step behind. I'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, reaching for Noah, only to find him sleeping in the guest room. "You're restless, Emma," he'd say gently, but I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. Our once warm connection was fraying, and I didn't know how to fix it. Have you ever pushed someone away because your pain was too big to share? Beyond my personal life, the theft ripped through my professional world like a wildfire. I'd been a rising star in tech after selling CyberShield for $25 million. But whispers started spreading in Silicon Valley. A Forbes profile about my startup success was quietly canceled. A speaking gig at a tech conference postponed, they said, but I knew better. Colleagues who'd once clamored for my advice suddenly had full calendars. The tech world loves disruption, but not when it's personal. If she can't protect her own money from her family, how can she protect a company I overheard at a networking event I forced myself to attend? My confidence, the thing that had carried me from a Detroit apartment to Stanford, was eroding. I turned down a lucrative consulting offer from a major firm, too paralyzed to focus. The villa I'd dreamed of, the sellers moved on to another buyer. Every door I'd worked so hard to open seemed to be slamming shut. I knew I needed help, so I started seeing Dr. Claire, a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. In her cozy office, surrounded by soft light and potted plants, I poured out my pain. I trusted them completely, I told her, my voice breaking. "How do I live with this?" She listened, then said something that stuck. "Betrayal doesn't define your worth, it reveals theirs." Those words were a lifeline, but they didn't stop the chaos. Meanwhile, Detective Rachel Carter, a sharp investigator with a no-nonsense ponytail, was digging into the scam. She uncovered something chilling. The $12 million had been funneled into offshore accounts tied to a money laundering network. Mom and Ethan weren't just greedy, they were pawns in a larger criminal scheme. Rachel found fake emails dating back months showing they'd planned this long before I sold CyberShield. They'd even researched countries with no extradition treaties like Switzerland, where they were now hiding. It was like discovering my family had been strangers all along. This brings me to the lesson I learned in those raw, aching weeks when your world falls apart. Reaching out for help isn't weakness, it's survival. I was too proud at first, thinking I could handle it alone. But Dr. Claire and Rachel showed me that healing starts with letting others in. If I'd isolated myself, I might have lost everything, including my will to fight. Before we go further, drop a comment. Have you ever needed someone to pull you through a dark time? Hit that like button if you're rooting for me, and subscribe, because what I discovered next wasn't just a clue. It was a spark that lit the fire for justice. Let's keep going. There's a moment when you're lost in the dark, and then out of nowhere, a tiny spark of light changes everything. That's what happened to me 3 weeks after my mom, Linda, and my brother, Ethan, stole $12 million from me in a heartless email scam. I'm Emma, and I was drowning in grief, my life unraveling with every sleepless night. But one phone call flipped my world upside down, not with despair, but with hope. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about uncovering a truth so big it gave me a reason to fight. Let me take you into the moment that pulled me out of the abyss. I was sitting in my apartment, surrounded by unopened mail and cold coffee cups, when Detective Rachel Carter called. "Emma, we found something," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Your money didn't just disappear, it's tied to a money laundering network." My heart raced as she explained. The $12 million had been funneled through a series of offshore accounts bouncing from the Caribbean to Eastern Europe. But here's the kicker, a chunk of it, about $8 million, was still sitting in a Swiss bank, traceable, because the criminals hadn't covered their tracks as well as they thought. Rachel's team had uncovered encrypted emails between Ethan and an unknown contact, revealing that Mom and Ethan weren't masterminds, they were pawns. A criminal syndicate had manipulated their greed, promising them a cut if they pulled off the scam. "They think they're free," Rachel said, "but they're being watched and they don't even know it." I leaned against the wall, my breath shallow as a mix of shock and relief washed over me. Have you ever felt that rush when you realize you're not powerless after all? This wasn't just a family betrayal, it was a high-stakes crime. Rachel showed me bank records and intercepted messages, painting a picture of Mom and Ethan living it up in Switzerland, oblivious to the net closing around them. They'd rented a penthouse, bought designer clothes, and posted cryptic Instagram stories of champagne flutes and snowy Alps taunting me from afar. But the money in that Swiss account, it was frozen, flagged by international authorities after Rachel's team tipped them off. The syndicate had used Mom and Ethan to move dirty money, but their sloppiness left a trail. It reminded me of the Panama Papers scandal in 2016, when leaked documents exposed how criminals and elites hid billions in offshore accounts. Like those players, Mom and Ethan thought they were untouchable, but their arrogance was their weakness. That's when I made a choice. I could have stayed broken, consumed by anger, but instead I met with Rachel and an FBI agent, Special Agent Torres, who specialized in financial crimes. "We can track them," Torres said, pointing to a map of Zurich, "but we need your help to draw them out." For the first time in weeks, I felt a fire in my chest, not rage, but purpose. I wasn't just a victim anymore, I was part of a plan to bring them down. The lesson I learned that day was simple but powerful. When you're at rock bottom, knowledge is your lifeline. Learning the truth about the money gave me a path forward, a reason to get up and fight. If I'd stayed in the dark, I'd still be that woman crying over cold coffee. Before we dive into what happened next, drop a comment. Have you ever found strength in a truth that scared you? Hit that like button if you're cheering me on, and subscribe, because the plan we hatched wasn't just bold, it was a trap, so clever it would make their heads spin. Let's keep going. Have you ever felt a fire ignite inside you, turning pain into purpose? That's where I found myself, standing at a crossroads after learning my mom, Linda, and my brother, Ethan, had funneled my $12 million into a money laundering scheme. I'm Emma, and for the first time since their betrayal, I wasn't just a victim, I was a fighter with a plan. The truth about their scam had given me a spark, and now with a team by my side, I was ready to turn that spark into a blaze. Let me take you into the moment I decided to take back control and the lesson that made it possible. It started in a small conference room in Detroit, the air thick with determination. Detective Rachel Carter spread a map of Zurich across the table, her pen circling a luxury hotel. "This is where they're staying," she said, pointing to grainy surveillance photos of Mom and Ethan stepping out of a chauffeured car dripping in designer clothes. My fiancé Noah sat beside me, his hand squeezing mine, a silent promise he was all in. Michael, my lawyer, adjusted his glasses, ready to tackle the legal maze. Rachel's team had tracked Mom and Ethan through their Instagram stories. Those cryptic posts of caviar brunches and snowy mountain views weren't just taunts, they were breadcrumbs. "They're predictable," Rachel explained. "They've booked a table at a charity gala next week, a high-profile event where they'll be out in the open." My heart raced. This was our chance. Have you ever seen someone's arrogance become their downfall? The plan was bold but precise. Rachel coordinated with the FBI and Swiss authorities who'd frozen $8 million of my money in a Zurich bank. We learned Mom and Ethan planned to transfer more funds at the gala, meeting a contact from the laundering syndicate. Our strategy let them walk into the event thinking they were untouchable, then confront them with the truth: their accounts were locked and the authorities were watching. Michael worked on legal filings to ensure any recovered money would return to me, while Noah helped me rehearse what I'd say. "You're not just confronting them," he said, his eyes steady. "You're reclaiming your story." I stood in front of my mirror, practicing my words, my voice shaking at first, but growing stronger. "You thought you broke me," I'd say, "but you only made me unstoppable." Every detail was mapped out. Rachel's team would monitor the gala's entrances, FBI agents would blend into the crowd, and I'd approach them at their table, calm but firm, with Swiss police ready to step in. This wasn't just about logistics, it was personal. I thought of the 2017 FBI sting in Monaco, where agents posed as partygoers to bust a Ponzi scheme mastermind at a yacht party. Like that criminal, Mom and Ethan's love for the spotlight was their weakness. Their Instagram posts flaunting watches and private jets gave us their exact movements. They thought they were outsmarting everyone, but they'd handed us the playbook. As we finalized the plan, I felt a shift, not just anger, but clarity. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it for justice, for the girl who'd trusted too much and deserved to stand tall again. The lesson I learned in that room was clear: no one can fight your battles alone, but with the right team, you're unstoppable. Rachel's expertise, Noah's support, and Michael's legal savvy turned my pain into power. If I'd tried to face this solo, I'd have burned out. Instead, I leaned on people who believed in me, and that made all the difference. Before we head to Zurich, drop a comment. Have you ever built a team to tackle something tough? Hit that like button if you're ready for the showdown, and subscribe, because what happened at that gala wasn't just a confrontation, it was the moment everything changed. Let's go. Have you ever stood on the edge of a moment knowing it could change everything? That's where I was, walking into a glittering gala in Zurich, my heart pounding but my resolve steady. I'm Emma, and after months of pain, I was about to face my mom, Linda, and my brother, Ethan, the people who'd stolen $12 million from me in a cold-blooded scam. They thought they'd outsmarted me, living a life of luxury while I crumbled. But tonight, I wasn't the broken girl they left behind. I was here to reclaim my story. Let me take you into the night that turned betrayal into justice, and the lesson it taught me about closure. The gala was a sea of crystal chandeliers and black tie elegance held in a grand Zurich hotel. I wore a simple navy dress, my hair swept back, blending into the crowd of philanthropists and socialites. My team was in place: Detective Rachel Carter and FBI agents mingled discreetly, their earpieces hidden. Noah, my fiancé, waited in a nearby suite with Michael, my lawyer, monitoring updates from Swiss authorities. We'd learned Mom and Ethan had reserved a private table at the gala, planning to meet a contact from the money laundering syndicate that had manipulated them. Their Instagram stories flashing diamond cufflinks and champagne toasts had pinpointed their arrival. Rachel's voice crackled through my hidden earpiece. "They're at table 12 northwest corner. You're clear to move." I took a deep breath, my heels clicking on the marble floor, and spotted them. Mom wore a shimmering emerald gown, her hair dyed a sleek blonde. Ethan, in a tailored tux, laughed loudly, a glass of scotch in hand. They looked untouchable, but they had no idea the trap was set. I approached their table, my voice calm but firm. "Room for one more." Their faces froze, a mix of shock and fear flickering in their eyes. Emma, Mom whispered, her glass trembling. Ethan recovered faster, his smirk forced. "What, here to beg for your money back?" I sat down, ignoring the curious glances from nearby tables, and leaned in. "I'm not here to beg. I'm here to tell you it's over. Your accounts are frozen. The 8 million you thought you had. It's locked and the Swiss police are outside. Mom's face paled, her hand clutching her necklace. You're lying, Ethan hissed, but his voice wavered. I held their gaze. You thought you could break me, but you only made me stronger. The syndicate you trusted, they used you, and now they're done with you. I gestured subtly, and Rachel appeared with 2 Swiss officers, their badges gleaming. Linda and Ethan Thompson, you're under arrest for fraud and money laundering, Rachel said, her tone clipped. The officers moved in discreet but firm, as gasps rippled through the crowd. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Emma, we had no choice, she pleaded. They threatened us. But her words felt hollow, like the excuses I'd heard my whole life. Ethan just glared silent for once. I stood, my voice steady. You chose this. You chose to betray me. As they were led away, I felt no joy, only a quiet release, like a weight lifting from my chest. It was like the climactic scene in Catch Me If You Can, where Frank Abagnale's lies finally catch up to him in a public takedown. Mom and Ethan's arrogance had led them here just as we'd planned. The lesson I learned that night wasn't about winning, it was about letting go. Confronting them didn't erase the pain, but it gave me closure, a chance to close the chapter without hatred. Holding on to anger would have trapped me, letting it go set me free. Before we move on, drop a comment. Have you ever faced someone who hurt you and found peace in it? Hit that like button if you felt that moment with me, and subscribe, because what came next wasn't just about justice, it was about rebuilding a life stronger than before. Let's keep going. Have you ever walked away from a storm and realized you're stronger for it? That's where I found myself after confronting my mom, Linda, and my brother Ethan at that glittering Zurich gala. I'm Emma, and while seeing them face justice for stealing my $12 million felt like a weight lifted, it didn't erase the scars. The road to healing was long, but it taught me how to rebuild not just my life, but my heart. Let me take you through the aftermath, where closure met renewal, and the lesson that helped me start again. After the gala, Swiss authorities took Mom and Ethan into custody. The legal process was a maze spanning multiple countries. Michael, my lawyer, worked tirelessly with the FBI and Swiss prosecutors. They faced charges for fraud and money laundering. Mom received a 7-year sentence, Ethan 4 years with a chance for parole after 2. Of the $12 million, $8 million was recovered from the frozen Swiss accounts, enough for me to start over. It wasn't the full amount, but it was a lifeline. I wrestled with whether to press charges. Part of me wanted to forgive, to believe Mom's tears about being coerced by the syndicate. But Michael was firm. Without consequences, they might hurt someone else. I agreed, choosing justice over sentiment, though my heart ached as I signed the papers. It reminded me of Elizabeth Holmes, the Theranos founder, whose fraud cost investors millions. Like her mom, and Ethan's choices had consequences, but unlike her, their betrayal cut deeper because it was family. Back home in Detroit, I faced the wreckage of my life. The villa I'd dreamed of was gone, sold to another buyer. My relationship with Noah was strained, our once easy laughter replaced by tense silences. I started seeing a couples therapist, Dr. Lee, whose warm office felt like a safe harbor. You've both been through trauma, she said. Rebuilding takes patience. Noah and I began small date nights at our favorite taco truck, holding hands under the stars. Slowly, we found our way back to each other. I also launched a consulting firm, using my CyberShield expertise to help startups secure their data. It wasn't the flashy comeback I'd imagined, but it felt honest. I bought a modest home, a cozy craftsman with a wraparound porch perfect for quiet mornings with coffee and Noah. Each step from therapy to work was a brick in rebuilding my life. Have you ever had to start over when it felt impossible? The lesson I learned was simple but profound. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about building something new despite it. I could have let the betrayal define me, but choosing to move forward with help from Noah, Dr. Lee, and my work gave me a second chance. If I'd clung to the pain, I'd still be stuck in that empty kitchen, crying over what was lost. Before we go further, drop a comment. What's one step you've taken to rebuild after a setback? Hit that like button if you're inspired by second chances, and subscribe, because the biggest lesson I learned wasn't just about recovery, it was about trusting again, smarter this time. Let's keep going. Have you ever wondered what it takes to trust again after someone you love breaks your heart? That's the question I wrestled with after my mom, Linda, and my brother Ethan stole $12 million from me and left me to pick up the pieces. I'm Emma, and standing on the other side of that betrayal, I've learned something profound, not just about them, but about myself. The biggest lesson from this journey wasn't about money or justice. It was about learning to trust wisely without losing the courage to trust at all. Let me share the wisdom I gained and how it's shaped the woman I am today. When I returned from Zurich, the legal battles behind me, I sat on the porch of my new home, a cozy craftsman in Detroit, far from the lavish villa I'd once dreamed of. The quiet of that porch with its creaking swing and blooming roses gave me space to reflect. I'd always seen trust as all or nothing. You either gave it fully or not at all. That's why I handed Mom and Ethan everything, my money, my faith, without a second thought. But their betrayal showed me that trust isn't blind. It's a choice tempered by wisdom. I started setting boundaries, something I'd never done before. A few months ago, a distant cousin called asking for a loan with a sob story that sounded too familiar. In the past, I'd have written a check, no questions asked. This time I said, let me think about it, and checked his story. It didn't add up, so I said no. That simple act felt like freedom, like reclaiming a piece of myself. Have you ever set a boundary that made you feel stronger? This lesson isn't just personal, it's universal. A 2020 Harvard study on trust in relationships found that people who balance openness with caution are less likely to be hurt and more likely to build lasting connections. It's like locking your front door at night. You're not shutting out the world, you're protecting what matters. For me, that meant trusting Noah, my fiancé, but verifying big decisions together, like double-checking bank details before any transfer. It meant trusting new business partners, but only after contracts were signed. I learned to love with my heart open, but my eyes wide, and it's made all the difference. I think of people like Oprah Winfrey, who faced betrayal from family early in her career, but built an empire by choosing who to trust carefully. Like her, I realized that betrayal doesn't define your worth, it defines the betrayer's choices. The lesson here is simple but powerful: trust wisely, not blindly. It's okay to believe in people, but always verify their actions, especially when it comes to your heart or your future. Saying no to that cousin wasn't about being cold, it was about honoring myself. It's a lesson I carry into every relationship now, from Noah to my new team at my consulting firm. It's not about building walls, it's about building bridges with guardrails. Before we wrap up, drop a comment. What's one way you've learned to trust smarter after a betrayal? Hit that like button if this resonates, and subscribe, because the final piece of this journey isn't just about what I learned, it's about how we can all rise stronger together. Let's keep going. We've walked through a storm together, haven't we? I'm Emma, and sharing my journey from the gut-wrenching betrayal by my mom and brother, who stole $12 million, to facing them in Zurich and rebuilding my life, has shown me something powerful. We're stronger than our scars. As I sit on my porch in Detroit, watching the sunset paint the sky gold, I'm filled with gratitude, not for the pain, but for what it revealed about resilience, love, and community. Let me wrap up this story with a final thought and an invitation to join me in something bigger. This journey taught me that betrayal, as crushing as it is, can be a doorway to growth. After recovering $8 million and starting my consulting firm, I found peace in small moments, like laughing with Noah over tacos or mentoring a young entrepreneur who reminded me of myself. I think of the #MeToo movement, where survivors shared their stories online, turning pain into a chorus of strength. Like them, I've learned that sharing our struggles doesn't weaken us. It builds a community where we lift each other up. My new home with its creaky porch swing isn't just a house. It's a symbol of starting over, of choosing hope over despair. Have you ever found strength in sharing your story with someone who gets it? The lesson here is simple. Your pain doesn't define you, but your response to it does. I could have let Mom and Ethan's betrayal make me bitter, but instead I chose to rebuild, to trust wisely, and to connect with others. That choice turned my darkest moment into my greatest strength. It's why I'm here sharing this with you, not for pity, but to remind you that you're not alone in your struggles. So here's my invitation: join our community of resilient survivors. Drop a comment below, share a time when you turned pain into power. What's your story? Hit that like button if this journey moved you, and subscribe with the bell icon so you don't miss part 2, where I'll reveal another secret that reshaped my life. Together, we can rewrite our stories not as victims, but as warriors.